And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome everybody to Crashing Game Night. My name is Matt Diorio, your host. As always, tonight we are joined by the babyface one, Theo Walski.
Whoa, I get first this time? What?
Whoa,
So weird.
whoa.
He's changing shit. Actually, I've been meaning to ask you, the intro with the countdown, is that like old school NASA actual countdown?
Actually, it is. It is from the Apollo launch.
Oh, okay. It's like it sounds like it's like
it's
Houston.
Brought to us courtesy by GarageBand.
Mm.
So it's one of the sound files I have in there.
So don't hit us up Twitch for copyright. It's Apple's fault.
Yeah. And then the man with the couch, the maitre d' services, the man, the myth, the legend, the Lions mane, Jason Belidio.
Hey. How's it going, guys? How's it going? Yeah, new couch. What do you think of the couch?
It looks like half a couch though. It doesn't have an armrest on both sides.
Sir, I'm trying this one out. You know, it's got
avant-garde. I like it.
It's a little avant-garde,
it's a
but
statement.
But it is one where it's like, I feel like I can just
he was shopping in
lay down,
it's
and
very
lounge
feng
out.
shui.
I'm gonna lounge out a little bit. I was looking for one that had Chase, that little corner. But I was thinking about that. So, I like this one for now. This is gonna be the temporary one. It's very, very out of the box when I'm in a box.
Yeah.
I see the couch and I'm just picturing you like pulling a George Costanza right now pose and everything and just getting ready to be photographed.
Speaking of that, hold on real quick.
Man.
I'll just segue into our version of George Costanza.
Thank you for the setup. Thank you for the setup. Great setup. Anyways, for all those Seinfeld nerds, that was a good one. And
we
all
love
you
Newman.
nerds
It's
out
been
there,
a while.
I know it's been a while.
Yeah,
Newman.
that's
Right,
true.
bro.
I hope Newman's doing well. Thank you all you nerds, everyone out there. Thank you very much. How's it going? What's going on, boys? J-Rock, the avant-garde feng shui new couch. I'm digging it. I don't know about the mustard yellow just yet, but it's growing on me.
Why you got this yellow?
It's growing on me.
This yellow?
I think it's good contrast. At least he stands out more than
it stands
in front
out
of the black.
I think I was like always.
It's just one of those that
bam.
I need to get used to it. It needs to grow on me, but it's growing on me quick.
So real quick, I just want to tell the listeners, unfortunately, we were supposed to have Jeff Steitzer on, the voice of multiplayer from Halo tonight. Due to scheduling conflict, we're gonna have to reschedule and have him on at a later date.
Bummer.
But next week, we're gonna make it up to you. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. I want to get right into it though, because we're gonna be voting for Game Awards tonight.
Yes.
So we all know that runs a little bit longer, so we're just gonna have to jump to it. So real quick, I want to start off is Shuhei Yoshida.
Okay.
We all know him as he's now Mr. Indie at PlayStation. He was also head of PlayStation Studios during the PS3 and part of the PS4 era, as well as part of the infamous E3 skit with Adam Boyce stating, "This is how you borrow a game on the PlayStation," right?
Here you go.
And it was just basically,
I believe Jason and I not only applauded that, but I believe we recreated it very cleverly, may I say. And that was a good example. Yeah, I love that. That was
after 31 years, January 15th will be his last day, and he's leaving.
Dang. Okay.
And for me, I think this strikes, although you've got Herman Hulst there, and you saw the different people involved at like Naughty Dog and stuff like that, I think this hurts PlayStation because he's been an advocate for indies for a while now. And you're seeing the old guard is now leaving PlayStation internal. And with the direction we see PlayStation going in, where it's more remakes and
pay to play,
trying to do pay to play and stuff like that, man, I hope they get somebody to fill his shoes that can be advocate for indies and try and keep what makes PlayStation, because at this point, right, their only competition is Nintendo. Let's just be honest, as far as in terms of dollar revenue.
Real.
Let's be real.
And you know what?
So-
Let's also not be biased here. And you know, I'm certainly privy to it. I do love Sony. We love Sony, but as you said, they've been doing a lot of pay to play and a lot of remakes,
Mhm.
which honestly, it feels like they're still kind of resting on their laurels. We're not seeing a lot of original content. We still see, you know, more remakes and, you know, reboots down the horizon. Now we're hearing about Uncharted getting rebooted. We're gonna get a whole restart on that now. You know, and then
Actually,
you
I
know,
had no
it's a
idea about
sequel with the kid with his daughter. That's
yeah,
no
possibly,
idea about that.
or I'm hearing possibly like starting at one, like a whole reboot.
Ugh.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's
restart,
bad.
restory, but kind
You
of
are
keep the same
going.
characteristics of who Nathan Drake is, but like now, like
Ooh, hey,
they're
Jeff
thinking
just
more.
joined us. Ooh,
Oh,
In true
Jeff
crashing
joined
game
us.
night fashion.
Hey.
crashing game night fashion.
Yeah.
There
I
he
love
is.
Oh
it.
yeah.
so we'll do
That's
Game Awards.
awesome.
We'll do Game Awards next week.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Oh,
Jeff, hello.
Jeff.
Hello. How are
What's
you
up?
all?
I
How's
wasn't
it
sure you
going,
got
sir?
my calendar invite, so we were gonna just wing it tonight. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I had
It's
something I was doing with my son, and then I
It's
had to
alright.
get all the way back home, and it took a little longer than I had intended it to. So, but I'm here now.
No,
No problem.
That
Thank,
is-
thank
to
you
be
so
here.
much.
that is
Absolutely.
perfectly okay.
Yeah. That is
So, folks,
true.
Actually, Jeff, I think this is the first time like we
Yeah.
didn't expect a crash on crashing game night.
Yeah,
This
you
is
totally,
fantastic.
Right?
we had you
Like,
cry. We love it.
This is an
That's the whole point.
accomplishment.
Yep. So yeah, I just got done Jeff telling everyone, hey, there was a scheduling conflict, because I hadn't heard back from you. So I was like, we'll have you back on a later date. We're gonna do Game Awards, and then you crashed, so it's perfect.
Awesome.
It works.
So all the people, yeah, here we
Everybody.
cut, and we're like, yeah, all right.
So folks, so yeah, we do have officially on the show tonight now the voice of God
Yes.
for the Halo franchise multiplayer. Let's do this right. Jeff Steitzer.
Woo!
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Whoa.
It's good to
Oh
be
my
here.
gosh. Thank you so much
Doing
for
all right,
joining
man.
us, sir.
It's
Yeah.
like what's funny is, like I mentioned in my email, man, you've been a part of gaming history, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But like for me, every time, because I play Call of Duty with Theo all the time, and every time I have a double kill or a triple kill, it's your voice that's in my head. All I hear is your voice going, double kill, triple kill. Like, I really wish that.
Don't
when I
worry,
have
he
that
doesn't hear
pitch-
it that often.
Yeah, right. Just once or
None of us
twice.
do.
double kills and
We're
triple
mainly
kills
stuck with the
last night,
single
but-
kills and dying.
But
But-
I do have a question for you. I'm sure you probably have answered this many a times, but I was just wondering what does it feel like kind of being that voice for generations playing on Halo Online, and kind of being that voice in their head, as Matt says, but it kind of carrying over, or even just being a part of that. How does that kind of feel? What's your perspective on that?
It is an amazing thing. Although for the longest time I did not realize, as I've said in other settings, I didn't realize we had fans. I didn't realize that our game was successful. Because nobody from Microsoft or Bungie ever called and said, "Yippee, we're a big hit." So, the first I knew that the Combat Evolved had gone well was when I got a call several years later from my agent saying, "Hey, they want you to do a sequel." I said, "Who wants me to what?" And they said, "For Halo." I said, "Really? Oh, it did well?" I mean, I did not know.
That's
I
so
only happened-
great.
Now, it happened a couple of years. I can't remember if it was that time or another or the next one, but I saw a thing in the New York Times, I believe it was, that said that the game had sold $175 million in one day. And I went, what? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, it is
Yep.
sort of successful. But it wasn't until some years later, because remember, nobody knew what I looked like or what I sounded like in real life. So I could walk anywhere, completely unrecognized, which was fine. But then, it started to happen that out of the blue, somebody would say, are you a voice actor? And I'd go, yeah, sometimes. And they said, are you involved in, Halo? And I'd go, well, yeah, I'm the announcer. I do, double kill, triple kill. And
Yep.
people would kind of explode in front of me. And I'd be
Oh,
like,
that's so
what?
awesome.
Okay. And I'm still staggered by the response of the fans to the game. It's
Oh,
obvious.
I got jazzed. I just got jazzed like just now. Like,
Yeah.
Right?
I felt I was back I know like my old house exactly where it was in my house playing Halo. Like I was right at that moment. Like, oh my gosh.
I mean,
Yeah, that's what it is. But
I have
that's
these
what's
guys
so
on my
great.
desk.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's
Wow.
what's so awesome about it. Like
Like-
that was kind of my first go around it at like maybe going public online and like talking smack to other guys, but other people online but just kind of like giving it a try, and then yeah, just getting immersed in it. It was just so much fun.
I'm
But
so
yes,
glad.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, as I say very often when I'm doing like a cameo or something, I say to somebody who is a self-professed fan or who a friend has said is a fan, I'll say, I got to thank you people. Jen Taylor said the perfect thing. We were at a gaming convention a couple of weeks ago in Columbus, Ohio, and somebody referred to the game as iconic, and she said, no, you make the game iconic. We didn't make the game iconic. You did because of, how much you love it. The game
Yeah.
could have, disappeared or not sold.
Oh yeah.
I suppose, but it didn't, happily. And the reason, as I always say, that we're still here 23 years plus later
Right.
is because of the incredible fans all over the world. And that's the thing that blows my mind. I mean, the fans are everywhere. It's, I do a lot of, it's so funny because Halo is a very small part of what I've done over the course of an almost 50-year professional career as a performer. Because it only comes up every like 3 or 4 years, and I go in for a maybe 2, and then it's like, okay, see you in a few years.
Reunion's over.
But it's like in the other things that I do, which primarily has been theater work, I might perform in front of 3,000 people.
Wow.
It might be the biggest auditorium I've performed in here in Seattle. Actually, I don't think the theater that I did Mary Poppins in New York on Broadway for a year and a half, played
Awesome.
Ethel Boom and the bank chairman. I don't think we had 3,000 people there, but it was a large audience. And, you take that and you multiply it by the year and a half I was there, and it still isn't going to reach the same number as one busy evening around the globe when everybody sits down to the game. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So much so that I can't really wrap my brain around it. And I'm always surprised when fans come up and say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, or whatever. I'm like, thank you,
That would be my next question is like, have you been to any conventions or anything like that? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure
Besides
those crowds
the
have been,
Columbus.
yeah, I'm sure those have been like super overwhelming. Like I'm sure you've seen the fans there. Like,
Yes, absolutely. I have been going to, I go to conventions every week if I could. I love them.
awesome.
And
Nice.
I
Yeah,
must
they're
say,
fun.
they're not the worst thing for the typical fragile actor's ego. Not bad at all. To sit there and sign posters and have people say nice things to you, I got to tell you, it is glorious. Yes, I have. I've been to a couple of conventions here in the Pacific Northwest where I live, and where I primarily have lived over the last, since 1975, when I moved
Wow.
here from the Midwest.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And Phoenix, Cleveland, Columbus, where else? New York. I was at the Comic-Con, but kind
Oh,
of
nice.
nobody knew I was there. So that was not the biggest audience we had. But every time we do an event of any kind, you know, people, sometimes it's very cool. They're excited, and that's great. They've got big smiles on their face, which I love.
Yep.
There have been occasions, on the other hand, where people were so freaked out that they were, within range of me, that they couldn't look me in the face.
Oh,
I've
jeez.
had
Wow.
I've had people start shaking uncontrollably, and say, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And I had all these things. I'll say, what would you like me to write on a poster? And it's like, I can't remember what's in the game.
What's something you
Um,
said? Tell me real quick.
Exactly.
Riot.
And it depends on the individual. The ones that blow me away the most are in some ways the ones that are the saddest, in that there have been many instances where people have come up to me and they said, I have to let you know that my home life was horrible. And, I didn't get along with my parents or my siblings or whatever. There was one young man in Phoenix who came up, and he said, I had an abusive childhood.
Oh,
And
jeez.
the only thing that got me through it was being able to go to my room and play Halo online. And he said it literally saved my life. And I said, you're not still at home, right? And he said, no, when I turned 16, I left.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He
Good.
said,
Awesome.
do you mind if I hug you? And I said, no, I don't mind. And, we hugged, and then he went on his way. But it's like, that never happens to me for anything else I do, because nothing else I've done, no matter how well it's been received.
Mhm.
And a lot of the stuff I've done has turned out pretty well, but
Mhm.
none of it's had the impact that this game has had for its fans.
And I think that's what makes gaming so great, though, Jeff, to that point, right? Is
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, I met at Denver Fan Expo,
Yeah.
Nolan North, and
Oh, yeah.
Uncharted. That game came out at a really down part in my life, and
Yeah.
it brought me out of that depression and stuff like that. And I think that's what makes gaming so great, is that everyone finds something that betters their life
Yeah.
in some way. But to your point, right, you've had a lot of things. You touched on your theater career, and I mean, it has been nearly 50 decades for you. That spans,
Not decades.
or sorry,
Decades.
50 decades
years,
is a
sorry,
lot.
50 years. 50 years,
Trying
sorry.
to do to me. I'm
It
old,
is,
but dear God.
You're giving
but
it away that he's
spans,
immortal, man. Jeez.
right? The voice is immortal.
Iconic, iconic.
You've been on stage, you've done voiceover work, you've done film.
Yep.
You touched on Mary Poppins.
Yep.
But one of the other ones that I, would do looking at your stuff is that Inherit the Wind with Christopher Plummer and Brian Dennehy.
Yes.
Which
Oh,
Christopher
wow.
Plummer is an
Wow.
icon in Hollywood and
Yes.
whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't know is that you actually stepped off the stage and were a director.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, nice.
like you mentioned on your site, is 180 plays.
Yeah.
Damn.
Wow.
That's
Well,
insane.
what happened is I think as I said before, I was joking about my fragile ego. If only that were the case.
Yeah.
In point of fact, my ego is all too healthy and about the size of Texas. And very early on, I decided, I think when I was in high school, it's like, well, I could direct these plays better than the drama teacher. About then I began to think, I want to be a director. And I started directing in high school. And then I got to college, and it was no better there. I thought, well, I'm certainly better than these clowns. and I wanted to direct it, and I did. And then when I moved out to Seattle to visit a friend, I was in the Midwest. She had been in the Midwest. We'd gone to college together. And then she'd gone to Seattle and she said, come out and visit me. And I went, oh, okay, why not? Nothing else. It's either that or go straight to the Twin Cities, which is where I thought I would go and start auditioning or finding a job, terrifying process. So I drove from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, all the way to Seattle, went to an audition. The artistic director saw me, decided to bring me back so that the ensemble that this company hosted at the time could see me and vote on whether they wanted me to be a part of the company. And they did. And I made it very clear from the very beginning that I wanted to direct. So we got to a point late in that first, and what turned out to be the last season of that ensemble. Late in the season, they were looking for a show, and I brought in a script, and they decided they couldn't decide on anything else. And they said, well, all right, we'll do that. And they said, leave the room. We're going to vote on whether we're going to ask you to direct it. And, it was like, and they did. And
Nice.
And I just kept doing it. And, I've directed all over the country at some of the largest theaters around, big regional theaters. I ran a theater here in Seattle for 5 years. I've directed every theater in this. I've done 180 productions, some of them brand new, some of them new to the United States. A lot of British playwrights got their American premieres in productions that
amazing.
Yeah, a lot of classics, just all musicals, just a little bit of everything. So yeah.
And then you also taught the professional actor training program at University of Washington.
I did indeed. That was a
nice.
Where I directed a show at this theater company that I've been for many, many years, The Empty Space. And I cast 2 actors and the movement teacher from the University of Washington. It was just, they'd auditioned. They were the best people. I cast them. And the guy who was the head of the program, quite legendary in academic circles, a guy named Bob Hobbs, came to see the show, loved it, wanted me to come and do something over at the school. And when the occasion arose for me to do something, he said, will you come direct at the University of Washington? And I said, sure. I was taking over a production for somebody who had to pull out. But it was like, yeah, that's great. They wanted me to do the School for Scandal, wonderful play from the, I'm going to say the 1800s, the 18th century, I should say, not the 1800s. and it was a cast of the actors in the program, one of whom was a guy I knew as Rick Karn, who would go on to be better known on TV as Richard Karn. He was Al the Tool Time guy on Home Improvement.
What? I remember Al.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a
good old Plaid. Gotta remember the Plaid, man.
Yep. And he was playing this character who was a hypocrite, and he had a servant. And the servant was cast with an undergraduate who had not yet joined the BFA program, which he would do the next year. And that was Kyle MacLachlan, who was from Dune and from Blue Velvet and from Twin Peaks. And he was the mayor of Portlandia. He was in Showgirls. But
How I Met Your Mother, he was the captain.
Yep.
That's right.
He got his start in a production
doing
cheap comedy for me.
Wow.
Yes, it was great.
Dang, that's insane.
There have been a number of people, that I've encountered. This is the thing about, well, first of all, people will say things like, so many people. It's like, well, stick around long enough and so will you. You meet everybody eventually, which is great. It's one of the things that's so great about being involved in the theater. And this was just the earliest instance of it.
And speaking of Kyle MacLachlan, a story you told on TikTok, I want to actually have you share with the group, is you getting involved with the casting for Dune.
Yeah. So one day I go home and this is back before any of you children were born.
Jeez.
And I had an answering machine. And on the answering machine was a message from a woman saying that she was, I think they said it was Dino De Laurentiis's daughter's secretary or something. And
okay.
we're looking for information about actors. And I thought, right. But for whatever reason, I called back, and indeed it became apparent that, yes, it was Dino De Laurentiis's daughter, I can't remember her name, who was working on the casting for David Lynch's film of Dune. And she said, not just to me, there were other people, but I've always claimed that, I was the first and the most persuasive to promote him. They said, do you know the book Dune? And I, not that, and fairly recently I'd read it. And I said, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. And they said, is there any young actor that you can think of in the Seattle area that might be a good Paul Atreides? We're looking all over the country. And I said, well, yes, actually, as a matter of fact, I do, because he's appearing in a play that I directed right now.
No way.
I was doing a production of a play called Two by Moliere. He was playing the hot-headed son, Dami. And so one day he was asked to go down to a hotel room in Seattle where he put something on film, I think. And then a couple of days later, he said, Jeff, I have to leave the show. I've got an audition in LA. And if I get this role, they're going to send me straight to set in, I believe it was Mexico, where they filmed.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So we had somebody could step in for Kyle, did a lovely job. Rick was his name. Kyle took off, and that was the last I saw of him.
Jeez.
He did go down.
Yeah.
He met David Lynch. David Lynch realized that they were, soul brothers or something, because they've done so much together. And
got the part,
he
yeah.
went to Mexico to film the show. A couple of years later, I happened in Chicago. I was directing a show. Kyle was in town. I don't remember how we even figured that out, but we connected, got together, and we were talking. And I can't remember, I think maybe I'd just seen him in a fabulous science fiction movie called The Hidden. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. It's about an alien that moves from host to host to host, while another character who's chasing and trying to put a stop to him, played by Kyle, is after him. It's a great, great movie.
Wow.
Michael, I want to say it's Nouri, Nouri, I think might have been the other lead. But there are some great surprises. And it turns out there was actually another actor that I'd known from Minneapolis who is one of the first people to be taken over by this alien creature. And so we were sitting and chatting, and I said, well, what's going on now? And he said, well, I just finished shooting a film. I said, yeah? He said, yeah, it was with David. I'm like, really? What is it? It's like, it's really hard to describe, but I had my first nude scene. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, it was really, really freaky, because I was standing naked in front of all the cast, the crew and everything, while this Isabella Rossellini is threatening my junk with a knife.
Oh, jeez.
The film was Blue Velvet.
Yep.
With Dennis
Dang.
Hopper and Isabella Rossellini, which, and of course, I understood when I saw it why he couldn't really describe it, because even though I've seen it, I'm not sure I could. And that was really what kind of cemented their relationship. And then a couple of years later, he was doing Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Twin Peaks.
Which, coincidentally, was the brainchild not only of David Lynch, but a young fellow named Mark Frost. And I knew Mark Frost from Minneapolis. We had been involved. A good friend of mine, Barbara Field, who has since passed on, had written some short one-act plays as a playwriting student at the university. And a local theater that was in a church basement overseen by the pastor of the church. It was called Theater of Involvement. They did plays, and they gave a home to these 3 one-act plays. I was in the first one-act play. Mark was in the last one-act play, and he was dating a girl who was in my one-act play. So we ended up, the 3 of us, going out and doing a lot of things, including one night dropping acid together, which I believe I decided. So I've always taken credit.
Now's a good time.
I've always taken credit for Twin Peaks, because had Mark not had the experience of, dropping acid and hallucinating, I can't imagine he ever would have come up with that series.
Public service announcement: we don't condone.
That's awesome.
I absolutely don't either.
Yeah.
Totally only used by professionals
but
and, and
like-
the supervision of professionals.
This was back in the 1970s, and we did a lot of crazy
Everybody
things.
did a lot of things back then. So, Jeff, how does it feel for you though? Like specifically with Kyle, right? Is that he was doing that play for you? You were kind of like that domino for him. Like, how does it feel for you to see the career he's had, and that you kind of had that push
Well,
to kind of jumpstart it?
Well, I mean, I don't take any real credit for it. I joke about it, of course. But, the fact of the matter is, as I said, there were other people
Mhm.
that they approached who also said the same thing. And when they heard it enough, that was when they decided, okay, we should take a look at this guy. And the fact of the matter is that Kyle has always been incredibly talented. If anything, he's only gotten more talented the older he's got,
Mhm.
which is the way you'd like to see it work. And in fact, most of the people I know who I have worked with, I've watched them grow and grow, and to a greater or lesser extent, watched their careers flourish. In some instances, watched them kind of collapse a little bit. One of the actors who went to school in Seattle, who I knew, was Brendan Fraser, who won the Oscar a year or two ago for The Whale.
Yep.
Wow.
We happened to bump into each other. We were in London. I was leading a tour from the theater, the Seattle theater I was running. He was there doing voices for an animated Amblin picture called Balto, about a dog.
Mhm.
The lead.
Yep.
I
Just
remember
happened to be
Balto.
both seen the same play, and said, let's get coffee tomorrow. And we did, and we yacked, and we talked about projects to do together, which sadly didn't come to fruition. But, and he was going great guns for a while, and was a big action hero with The Mummy. And
Yeah.
suddenly, there was like all this bad stuff being said about him, which made no sense to me, because he
Yep.
was one of the nicest people, like so many of the people that I've encountered. I would say more often than not, the people I've been lucky enough to meet or interact with have been spectacular people.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's good. That's
Good.
good. Yeah.
I
Yeah, you
can't
gotta
even,
love that.
And
I mean, they've had even bigger egos in some instances than me. I was sitting in Earth the Wind with Christopher Plummer, because I was the director, and we used to chat backstage. And he was great, because this is true of any actor. All you have to do is ask them a question and settle in for a couple of hours. Chris was no different. He loved to talk about Chris, and I loved to hear what he had to say. Brian Dennehy was the same way, and they told fabulous stories. And one day I remember asking Chris very specifically, Chris, what do you want from a director? What are you looking for? And he said, to stay as far away from me as possible. And I laughed, but then I thought, oh, no, actually he's right. Because a lot of directors get in and tell you what to do. They don't tell you how to do it. They just, tell you the result they're looking for.
Mhm.
Not useful to an actor. The best directors basically, may provide a little bit of structure, but then they want your input. That's why they hired you. And with someone like Chris Plummer, who was really an acting titan. He's great in film, but to watch him, as I did, every night for 6 months on stage, and just watch, him take the audience in the palm of his hand, was an extraordinary experience. Just amazing. So I think that was really good advice.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, there are some egos involved, but
I mean,
Egos in the film industry, or
Yeah.
and voiceover work, nah,
never.
never.
but
Um,
in film, it's like the people I've had a chance to meet and work with have never been anything but incredibly kind.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no matter who they are.
so
Many of
you
them
talk,
can't believe that anybody thinks they're cool. That's the thing that you have to realize, is that everybody
Yep.
who gets to do anything is, first of all, talented, but they doubt their own talent. Everybody
Mhm.
has
Okay.
imposter syndrome. They don't believe that they can possibly be any good. I mean, without exception. And then they also can't believe that anybody would want to meet them or hear what they have to say. And it's just the way it is. Um, so yeah, when you, like I say, all you have to do is say, Brian, what was it like doing Cocoon? Oh God, yeah, that was the craziest thing. Off and running. It's great.
That's cool. And it's even awesome that you still like come in contact with them if you recognize them, they recognize you. It's like, oh
Well,
my
I
God.
don't come in contact with Brian and Chris. They're both dead.
No, I know, but I mean
But yes, I would occasionally, we would run into each other, and they could not have been nicer. I actually went to, when I was living in New York, I lived in New York for about 6.5 years. That's when I was doing the 2 Broadway shows. And that's when I had a little teeny tiny bit on 30 Rock, and I spent a half hour, yakking with
Mhm.
Alec Baldwin. I mean,
Yep.
again, could not have been nicer, even though I'd heard from close friends that he could be terrible, but he wasn't with me. He was great. And so I went up to a theater in New Haven, Connecticut, the Long Wharf Theater, where a friend of mine from Chicago, who I'd worked for, a guy named Bob Falls, had directed a production of a play by Eugene O'Neill called Huey. It's basically a 2-character play. It's about this
Oh
guy
wow.
who's a night clerk in a rundown hotel in, lower Manhattan back in the day, in the teens, I think it was set, and about this guy who's kind of a bit of a blowhard, Huey, who comes and tells his story and makes a lot more of himself. And you quickly realize he's not quite the success he presents himself as being. Brian was playing that part. His great friend Joe Gerfasi, wonderful character guy. They were in, I think, the FX movies together. They did both of those together. It's a two-hander. And afterwards, there was a talk back, and then I'd stayed for it. And he spotted me. Brian did. And he went, "Hey, Tiger! Great to see you, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the best actors in the country." And it's like, we only did one show together. But it's
Mhm.
early on, he decided that I was a good actor. And he told this audience, I could not have been more embarrassed. But then afterwards, we sat and chatted. He said, he said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "I'm going to catch the train back to New York." He said, "Well, let me give you a ride. So we chatted, and from the theater to the train station. I'm trying to think if I saw him again. I sent him a present backstage when he was doing a show in New York. That was the last show I think Chris did on stage, was Inherit the Wind, wasn't it?
Wow.
Was
Wow.
Mhm.
it? Because he was doing movies so much, you
Okay.
know. They both did movies. They both
That's awesome, though.
they both did Pixar films.
Yep.
Chris did Up. He's the villain in Up. And Brian came in one day, and Brian was always kind of, coming to do the show, and he'd be kind of tired. And he'd do it and stuff. And he's saying, so I said, "Well, what'd you do today?" Brian said, "Oh, I was doing voice recording for some animated film. It's a Pixar film. When just my luck. It's about this rat that wants to be a chef. Who the to go see a movie about a rat?" And
Awesome.
he played the rat's
Oh.
father.
Oh,
Well,
that's amazing.
shortly thereafter, the movie came out, and it was like, by then we'd closed, and it's like, I wanted so badly to see it go, "Well, Brian, what do you think now?"
That's awesome.
But it was great. He was super.
So when you talk about auditions, how did the audition for Halo come about?
Like every other audition I ever did for anything, basically, I got well, for the longest time, I worked without an agent for
Mhm.
anything. I was able to go from job to job to job to job because basically work begets work, and people would ask me to do stuff, which was great. And then for a long time, I was directing plays, so I wasn't looking for acting work. But after I started doing voice work in 1976, unbelievably enough, the reason I did it was there was a guy who produced commercials. Very, very dear fellow who has since passed away. Great guy. Greg Palmer was his name. He ran this company that produced commercials, and he loved our ensemble of actors because he did not like voiceover actors. You know, the ones that sounded like they were voiceover people. He didn't want those.
Mhm.
He didn't. He couldn't get
In a
anything
word.
from them. They weren't
Yeah.
funny. He would write these, very, very funny commercials. So he asked us if we would, appear in his commercials. It was like, sure, little extra spending money, why not?
Sweet.
So we did that, and there was a guy who was the engineer for Greg whenever we did them. So Greg had us in a lot and had me in. We got to be very, very good friends over the years.
Mhm.
In fact, I narrated the audiobook that was his memoir after he
Oh, wow.
posthumously.
Oh,
He didn't
That's
wow.
do it,
incredible.
but then he passed away, and his widow asked, who I also know quite well, asked if I would do it, and I said, absolutely.
Oh,
That's
Dang, that's an
very
honor.
nice.
Quite
yeah,
grateful.
that is-
And so the engineer started recommending me to other people, and I was
Mhm.
on a fairly regular basis for I don't know how many years. And then I had an audition one day, and I went in and did the audition, and ended up not getting the part. But the casting person, who was fabulous, said, "Do you have an agent?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I don't. I've been thinking maybe I should get one."
Maybe.
Do you have anybody in mind? And I said, well, there was this one talent agent in town who was the big talent agent. And my ex-wife had been with her. And I don't know if by then I directed her son in a play. Anyway, I thought, well, maybe I'll talk to Tish, was her name.
Mhm.
And she said, well, I'm sure she would love to have you. They'd be delighted to have you on their roster. But there's this new agent in town you might be interested in. She's got more of a boutique agency. And I thought, oh, okay, sure. And as is my want, I put it in the back of my mind, and I probably would not have thought about it again, except the next morning at 9 a.m., I was still in bed, having been, as usual, up late, doing God knows what. And the phone rings, and I reach and I begin to go, hello. And this voice says, Jeff, hi, it's Topo Swope. Talk to Jody Rothfield. I understand you're looking for an agent. I'd love to represent you. Can you come in and talk to me about it? It was like, yeah. And she said, well, how about Monday? It was a Friday. And I said, sure, yeah, what time? And she told me. She said, meanwhile, I'd like to send you out today for a TV audition for a series that was, being shot in Seattle. It was Northern Exposure.
Mhm.
TV series.
Oh,
Didn't
hitting
get
the
to
ground
do it.
running
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I went
Jeez.
out and did
Damn.
it. And Topo, as it turns out, was from Los Angeles. Her mother was an actress named Dorothy McGuire. And if you've ever seen the movie of Swiss Family Robinson, she's the mother in that film.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
she was also in the film Peyton Place, which spawned this
Hmm.
huge successful TV series. She also did a film called oh God, Spiral Staircase, where she plays a servant who is being threatened by a mysterious figure who's a killer. I think she's mute. I can't remember. It's been so long since. Anyway, Dorothy McGuire was discovered by Henry Fonda, right?
Oh, wow.
How she
Mhm.
got her Hollywood career, and she was a Hollywood star. And Topo was her daughter, and Topo had done some acting and stuff, and then moved to Seattle and decided she wanted to be an agent, and that's how we got together. And it was Topo who called one day, as she would always call and say, "You've got an audition here, there, wherever." It's like, okay. So one day I get a call, and she says, "You've got an audition out at Microsoft." And I'd done some stuff for Microsoft, done a couple of games, small ones, nothing that ever went anywhere terribly important. And I said, okay, what time, where, when? It's going to be at the main campus, whatever o'clock it was going to be.
Mhm.
I said, what do I need to do? Just show up. They'll have the copy there. It's like, okay, what is it? And she said, it's a new game. I said, uh-huh. I said, so does it have a name? She said, I think it's called Halo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I drove out there as I would for any audition. parked my car, went inside, went into, was finally I was called to go in an audition. I think Marty was there. I can't remember for sure. I would meet Marty. I think I met Marty actually when I went in to record, but I could be
Are we
wrong.
referring to Marty O'Donnell?
Marty O'Donnell. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Who,
seem to
for those that don't know that name, he is the composer of the score.
and he's the man who was in charge of the first 3 games. He was the big
dang.
boss.
Mhm.
And he must have been there. Because I think he gave me the only direction I got. So what happened was every actress and actor in town who did voice work was called in to audition for the game. Marty had come from Chicago with Bungie. That's where his company had been located originally when Microsoft decided they wanted Bungie and Halo. Everybody moved out to Seattle. When Marty was in Chicago, the people he worked with were all Chicago actors because, as everyone knows, Chicago has insanely amazing actors. They've turned out, and comedians. I mean, it's just. So Marty thought, well, I'm going to be in Seattle. I should, I understand it's got a great talent pool. Let's see if we can't cast as much of this as we can from that. So the men all had to read Master Chief, and I remember reading an Alien. The women all read Cortana, and then everybody who auditioned had to act like they were being destroyed. They had to scream and wail and agony.
Like react and
Exactly. I have no doubt, and I really firmly believe that somewhere in that first game, you can hear me screaming. Because they had it. Why wouldn't they? If they paid for it, of course they used it. But I never found it or anybody, who knew where it was. So the end of the session, which was reasonably brief, as most of them are, they said, well, thanks a lot, Jeff. That's great. And I was like, okay, goodbye, thinking that's the last of that. And then I get a call from my agent saying they want you in the game. Now, it's a longer story, so I won't tell it necessarily, but I was told by my agent,
Part 2.
They want you for Master Chief. Your cast is Master Chief. And I went,
what?
And I went, really? And it's like,
Really?
okay, but remember, I don't know what that means.
Oh,
I didn't know
that's true.
what a Master
Yeah.
Chief was.
That's true. Yeah.
In essence, nobody
hadn't
did.
seen the artwork. I'd seen like 6 lines or a half a page of lines, and the only
That could mean you're like general of this part of the army, and like totally.
Didn't know anything. It's like he's a soldier, and I was asked if I could, sort of do it like Clint Eastwood, and it was like, oh, okay, Clint Eastwood, you're kind of doing it, sort of in the back of your throat, kind of thing. Something like that.
Nice.
Oh, well, it is what it is.
But
But
almost not bad. Almost, but almost Logan Wolverine like too. There, I liked it.
Yeah.
well, that was just what it was kind of like that kind of a feeling, and he had to have some, cojones and stuff. So anyway, and so I thought, great. Well, time passes. Everybody I know who's in the game, David Scully, who was Sergeant Johnson, all the other actors, they all go in. They're all recording, and I haven't been called yet. I finally called Jen Taylor, who's a friend, and I say, have you recorded yet? And she went, oh yeah, I finished all my stuff like a couple of weeks ago. And I thought,
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So I called Topo and I said, Topo, everybody I know has been in to record for Halo. What's going on? She went, oh, I'll give him a call, find out. She called me back shortly thereafter. She said, well, I've got good news and I got bad news. And I said, uh-huh. She said, the bad news is that Marty got cold feet about using you for Master Chief because he's not worked with you before.
Oh.
So he decided to go with somebody he knew in Chicago. That somebody, as we all know, is Steve Downs.
Yep.
Makes perfect sense. And over the years, I've come to the conclusion that everything works out the way it's supposed to work out. Because having heard Steve, it's like, I couldn't have done that, It is truly inconceivable that isn't Master Chief, So they said, Tropo said, but the good news is they want you to be the announcer for the game. And it was like, well, that doesn't sound interesting at all. I want to play an alien or something, a character. So I go in the first day to record for the game, and I park. I have to go through security, which I've never done at Microsoft before. I mean, literally, there was a guard there that while they checked my ID and everything, it's like, it's me. What? No, come on. So I went in, and Marty came out and he got me, and we chatted a little bit. Then he took me into a big room where all the work was going on. Everybody was at computer terminals. It's like one of those films where you're in a newsroom and there seem to be 100 desks and everybody's got their little computer and they're all working. And he said, Jeff, let me introduce you to some people. So I was meeting people. Of course, I didn't remember anybody's names. Later, but there were so many people. But and it was showing me the artwork, and it was like, dear God, it was hyper real. It was for then unbelievable. And he showed me a Halo ring, and I didn't know what it was, but he said, this is the Halo ring. And it's like, oh, okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
The booth.
Why
The
not?
good
Marty.
ring, man. Good
It's
ring.
big. Yeah.
So
That's
then
it.
we go
It's
to, he
big.
says, okay, we should probably get you working. He said, let's go to the, he says, okay, what are you going to do for the voice? And I was like, I don't know. What do you want? And he said, well, can you do Monster Truck Rally? Monster Truck Rally, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, I said, I can do that. He said, okay, well, pull it back a little bit. Monster Truck Rally. And then he said, you did the Alien, right? And I said, yes, I did. And it was sort of, a bad Emperor Palpatine or something like that. Give it a little of that. So we're adding all these different flavors. And after about 20 minutes, maybe, he said, I think we got it. And it was like, okay. So
Oh,
That's
and
it.
then I
All right.
started off and we did it. And that was
Nice.
that was the short version.
And that's how it was
how
done.
I got the audition for Halo.
And the rest is history.
It
For real.
is.
History.
For
Yeah.
real.
As it turns out. One of the things that sort of cheered me up a little bit when I was told I was going to be the announcer, the guy who was the one of the sound designers, Jay Wineland, who I worked with a lot, said, Jeff, they're going to hear you more than anything else in the game. And I went,
Yeah.
really? Again, ego, right? Really? Oh, then it's okay, But yeah, that was how that
I mean, to
That's
your
crazy.
point, Jeff, I can remember shortly after Halo coming out and the introduction of like Halo 2, and I can remember doing LAN parties
Oh yeah.
at friends'
Oh,
houses where we
man.
have TVs. We're all bringing TVs
The good
and
old
Xboxes.
LAN
and
parties,
Good
baby.
old LAN party,
Yes.
man.
Oh yeah.
Your
dude.
voice, seriously, since the game has come out, like it's always been the multiplayer. It's to your point, we heard it more than just playing the game, than Steve's.
I mean,
and
it's one of the
Ben
great,
Taylor's
it's one of the great
lines and
injustices
yeah.
of the world
Mm.
that, Steve hardly breaks a sweat when he goes into court because he doesn't say a whole lot, just like Clint Eastwood,
Yeah.
And much like
Exactly. But yeah, I worked a whole lot harder. We'd always have a lot more to do. But is a delightful person. I didn't meet him till 2020.
Wow.
No
Oh.
way.
Steve, I'd known Jen, knew Scully, knew a lot of, the other people. I've never met Keith David. And I said to our
Really?
agent at CelebWorks, I said, if you can, is there any chance because we've been putting together, events where they send us all out. So it'll be Steve, Jen, and then like either Bruce Thomas, who's the motion capture master chief and one of the stars of the latest Call of Duty game.
Okay.
Or like had Tim Didabo was with us in Columbus, who was Guilty Spark. Is that his name? Yeah, that's
Yes.
his name. And I said, I'd love to, maybe go to one of those things with Keith. And it was like, we'll keep that in mind. That's a great idea. So, and of course, I've known him as an actor from long before I knew he was in Halo. I didn't know he was in Halo. I had no idea for the longest time.
So,
Dang, that's cool.
Jeff, one of the things that we like to ask our guests that are, actors and stuff like that is, what's the biggest piece of advice that you could give to anybody that was looking to get into either stage, voiceover, or film as an actor?
Gosh, that's a much more complex question I can answer in, simply. I will try to not bloviate for long. Anybody can pretty much do stage work no matter where they live, because almost anywhere you are is going to have a community theater or a high school drama program. You can do plays, and that's how you get started. Because as with anything, you have to start somewhere. And once you start, if you really, really, really love it, then you will want to do it some more, to the point where you may end up moving to one of the bigger cities where you can actually hope to make some money doing it. Voiceover, at one time, I might have said you have to go to New York or LA because they're two of the bigger centers for voiceover work. But even before the pandemic, more and more people were investing in their own studios. But once the pandemic came, you had to have your own studio. It used to be I would get a call to an audition, and just as I did for Halo, I would drive down to where the audition was. I'd park my car. I'd hope I put in enough change. I'd walk in, check in, go in and sit with a bunch of other voice actors competing for the same role, all of whom I knew. We would chat and yak and laugh and be told to quiet down. And then eventually you'd be called in, you'd do the audition, you'd finish it, you'd check out, you'd go home. You know, you got it or you didn't get it, or you got a call back or you didn't. That never happens now. What happens is I've got a New York agent, Stuart Talent, and I will get an email saying, you have an audition, this is the copy, this is what they're looking for, this is when we need it by. You know, they've already vetted my studio. They've decided that the studio is good enough that I can send samples of my own voice that I've recorded and I've edited and mastered for an audition in. And, you know, then we see what goes with it there. So you can do now voiceover from pretty much anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Films and TV, it's different. You sort of, I mean, it is, for instance, I had a recurring role in the TV series of The Fugitive with Tim Daly and Michael T. Williamson because they shot it here. And I was lucky enough
I didn't know it was shot in Seattle.
Yeah.
No way. Oh.
Wow.
All the places it was pretending to be were only
Yeah.
ever around Seattle.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And some of them, this is the best part, is their major studio was an airplane hangar. So for the scenes where we're all at our desks,
Mhm.
right? It was just this big room with these big desks, walls that could be pulled away. So they
Wow.
right? And
Probably
then
like kept into tight shots and like, oh, it
Totally.
framed. Oh my God.
Huge windows on the other side of which was like a big drop. It was a photographic drop of
That's awesome.
Chicago. And it
Wow.
was just lit, so it looked real. If you saw it now, you'd go, that's a real location. No, it wasn't. And as I say, everybody had a desk in this large kind of, room, like, all the President's Men or any of those newspaper things. And then one day I get a script for what ends up being the last episode I was in. And it was, we find my character, was I Art Zimmerman? Art Zimmerman was my name, I believe. And we find Art in his office. And I went, I don't have an office. And they were like, yeah, you will tomorrow when you shoot. There will be an office. And I said, well, how's that going to happen? Because the production designer was just a genius. And they said, remember when we shot that sequence when you're in the control center and it was dark and there were all these TV screens and you and Michael T were like talking about, information you were finding, trying to sort of figure out some mystery. And I was like, yeah. He said, that's going to be your office. So I thought, well, we'll see.
Sweet.
So I get a ride to my car and I drive home. The next morning I park and get a ride to the studio. And they said, you want to come see your office? And I went, sure. And they opened the door to this room that's about the size of a study somewhere. And it's got a desk, it's got a chair, it's got another chair, it's got all this memorabilia, it's got,
Wow.
pizza.
So they knew how to dress on that
pizza.
show.
Unbelievable.
That's so cool.
one of the reasons we didn't get renewed was that every episode cost around $1 million, and they decided this is too much money.
Okay.
And that's 2001, $1 million.
that makes sense.
Exactly.
Dang.
So, but isn't that crazy? Anyway,
Yep.
it could not have been
That's
more fun.
cool.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Well, I just
So
glanced up.
you need to go. I'm sorry, I was in the middle
No,
of that.
you're fine.
No, dude, that's
So if you
right.
wanted to do movies or TV, eventually you head to New York or you head to
Mhm.
Los Angeles. If you're young and talented and reasonably good looking or quirky or something, and if you really, 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 really are willing to do anything you can to do it, you go to LA and you try and get into movies.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's still
Okay.
where it is. There's a lot of work in New York, TV and movies, but I still think LA is where young folks should go. And then you try and get yourself seen, you do whatever you can, so that someday you can get an agent, because then you can get sent out and, meet as many people as possible. Basically, what you want to do is you got to want to do this more than anything else in the world. You've got to be willing to say yes every single time until you don't have. Because everything is experience, and the more experience you have, the better you will get at whatever job you're doing, whether it's being, holding the stage in a 3,000 seat theater, whether it's, standing in front of multiple cameras with a crew of 30 people all around you, and you have to not notice them, memorizing bunches of lines. TV's the same way. Voiceover, when it's time to go in and produce, you can go in and produce. I mean, that's really what it's all about. But I would say the most important thing is to want it as much as anything in your life, and then go for it. And if you do want it that badly, chances are you'll do it.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
That's amazing advice. But yeah, so I just looked at the time. We're already up at the top of the hour of the show.
Oh my gosh.
Already. Like,
Man.
I could sit here and listen to stories from you.
Yeah,
all day long, Jeff.
I thought we were only like 20 minutes in, to be honest.
I just looked up and I was like, wow. Like, no wonder the kids are being
20
like,
minutes.
yeah. But no, definitely appreciate you coming on, Jeff. So
My
for
pleasure.
all of our listeners, I have a guest profile already built on the website
Nice.
for Jeff. It has a link to his website. Go check that out. It's got a lot of great information about Jeff and his career and some of the services he does. So if you happen to be a casting director or something, and you want to hire Jeff, hey, his contact information is on crashinggamenight.com.
He can drop some names really easily.
Yes. But with that, to our listeners, this is the first time you're crashing with us. Thank you. We appreciate you giving us a chance.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, and you're so much fun to just listen
Dude,
to.
so much fun. I could
Stories,
listen to your
man,
stories
like-
forever.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
We're
Well,
gonna
I mean,
have to meet
I
again.
told you, all you have to do is pull the string, ask the question, and we just
And
go.
let it go.
But
I
above
know.
all, we also just want to say thank you for essentially our childhood, and just be, like we said earlier, being that voice, being a part of our lives in that way, because it's generational, man. It's not just our generation, but it's gone on, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Okay, what do you want to hear?
Ooh.
Oh, for me, I'm a classic, dudes. Double kill.
Double kill.
Me?
Nice.
It's always been Running Riot.
Thank you.
Running Riot.
Yep.
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
That's so
The name
awesome.
of the name of this episode was Oddball and the Running Riot.
Yes.
So awesome. But thank you again,
but,
sir, and thank you for joining so much.
But to our listeners, like, we close out all the I close out all the shows, especially with everything that's going on right now in the world. A lot of uncertainty as far as what's going to be happening, especially here in the States, especially with some of the news that's come out last couple of days. Just please be excellent to each other.
That's right, all you nerds out there. I'm going to keep it short this time, but let's just once again, let's just promote the same same movement. Let's just try and do and be better. let's just try and lend out a helping hand and just try and be there for one another and just try and see if we can help out and be safe out there. To J Rock, go on, baby.
One other question that I need to ask you for sure, Jeff, and
Okay.
I asked all the first time guests we have on for game night, for your family game night, whether it be friends, family, coworkers, whatever it may be. What is your go-to board game or like card game or any of those games?
Oh dear God, I'm going to sound like an old retired person from Florida. My friends and I play Pinochle.
Hey, all
Dude, that's
right.
awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
Classics never go
We are
Yeah, man.
Nothing wrong
mostly
with that.
because, unlike bridge, you don't really have to be paying too close attention. Because it's not that hard to play.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's
I like
awesome.
Classic.
I like that.
Love
I
it.
like
I
that
love it. I
answer.
love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry. Like I'm a big mahjong player. Like the guys know, I love
Yeah,
playing mahjong.
that's so
Like,
awesome.
Absolutely.
So
So-
cool.
Board games, though. I love board games.
yeah, they're so good. They bring people together so much like closer. Like you can just laugh. Sometimes you don't even finish, and you're just like,
Yep.
you know, and you're like, you just have a good time. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but again, thank you for coming on tonight. Like, it's just we're just so happy to have like literally one of the childhood voices of and generations to come.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, like thank you so much. It's just an
Thank
honor.
you guys.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it simple. It's Thanksgiving. Hey, you know what? Happy Thanksgiving, Jeff. since
Happy
we won't see you,
Thanksgiving,
but
everyone.
happy,
And happy
hopefully
Thanksgiving.
have a early
That's right.
Thanksgiving.
All of you.
You know,
Yeah,
everybody.
it's a big Thanksgiving. It's my birthday as well.
Oh, and
wow.
happy birthday.
Happy
Birthday.
early birthday as
Oh.
well.
Happy early
There you go.
birthday.
You know, like hopefully have everybody out there, if you're watching, listening, just hopefully you have a good, safe, happy Thanksgiving. You know, Jeff, you're always welcome back. The guys don't like this couch. I'm for it, but you're always welcome back on the couch anytime you want. You know, it's
Thank you.
always a good time.
Thank you very much.
We'll sip tea and we'll have a good time. So, but we're closing this show out. So, my man, Theo Walski, send us out like you do.
I have to say, Jeff, thank you again for joining us. It was just so amazing to have you on, and hopefully we have you on again, where we get to meet and just listen to all your stories. It's just freaking amazing. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
fun times.
But to all our listeners, to all our watchers, till next time, TTFN, ta-ta for now. Good night, everybody.